Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your enjoyment. If you are an author and would like to submit your stories to this channel, then check the pinned comment down below. Anyways, onto the story. School is boring for everyone, written by AdjutantStormy. On the liberated Zafri slave world of Wolf 359 Beta, two children complained that school, like they all do, one, Sally Tompkins, daughter of human peacekeeper, and the other, Zektian, a male youngling of the formerly enslaved furry mammalian raccoon-like Zetans. School was boring. Why couldn't they just go out and play, being the constant refrain from all school-bound children? They were 30 standard minutes from the end of the school day, and as agitated as the adolescents within the stone's throw of freedom. Hey, psst, Zex. Human Sally poked her fuzzy companion with a pencil. "Want to go climb trees again today, after school?" "I can't. My pa would rip my clothes off if I didn't pass maths this year. He says maths are what kept us down with the Zafri. That and history. History is hard," Zex said, depressed. He had been held back a grade before. The human school was hard. Oh, we can go see Uncle Jeff. He knows all about maps and history. He was a starship gunner in the war. With his help, you'll pass for sure." The suddenly damn near glowing Sally exclaimed, "He lives just over the hill where the sun rises. I'm sure he'd help us study for the exams." Not seeing the difference between old humans lecturing him in study hall and Sally's positive ancient uncle lecturing him, he chose whatever would make her happy. All right, let's go see Jeff after school." Sally, ecstatic, whispered, "Deal." They were still in class after all, and she didn't want to attract the teacher's attention. Miss Stern, Tobeck, caught them red-handed clawed. "Miss Tompkins, is there something that you would like to share with the class?" Sally, as usually model student, panicked. She had never been in trouble before. Yes, miss. I was just planning a trip to my good Uncle Jeff. He's a veteran, you see, and I thought he could help us new students with history and maths." Mrs. Tobrick smiled devishly. Jeffrey Tompkins was a notorious hermit, a gun nut, and is laden with as much PTSD as a man can be and still be ambulatory. "Oh, why don't we make it a field trip? That way the whole class could benefit from his experience, and not just you and your friends." Sure, in the back of her heart, Sally would decline and submit to a detention for talking in class. Sally beamed with the suggestion. Yes, sorry, miss. I meant that I could absolutely be arranged. Let me talk to Papa and Uncle Jeff first." Beaten at her own game, Mrs. Tobrick relented to scheduling a field trip, one she hoped would be dull. Mrs. Tobrick had lost control. What was supposed to be a nice historical field trip with some maths on the side had devolved. Uncle Jeff was in his element. "All right, lads, you got a target 2,400 meters away," he says, pointing to the broken tractor on his property, whilst patting a war-era 50 cal anti-material rifle with two children manning it. Jeff revisiting his rank in the human army. "What's the muzzle velocity of this damn old-ass gun, class?" In unison, 1,200 meters per second, Captain." "And how long would it take to hit its target, assuming you aimed it right?" inquired Uncle Jeff. In unison, 2 seconds, Captain. Captain Jeff. "Very good, class. Now, with your home planet's gravity being a mere 8 meters per second, how much bullet drop do we have to account for? That's 1 divided by 2xaxt2 for the mathy folks." Of course, Sally raised her hand. Uncle Jeff ignored her openly, but gave her a wink. "Well, if none of you can do math without a calculator, let's measure it. This is science after all." And with that, Uncle Jeff walked out. 400 meters, 800 meters, 1,200 meters, 1,600 meters, 2,000 meters, and 2,400 with posts marked with tape every half meter, and jammed them in the dirt all the way to his next busted tractor. "All right, you're going to aim high. How high? You will record every shot on your team. Here is a monocular for each of you. You will record the aiming altitude of each shot and landing of each shot. The first team to hit the tractor 3 times in a row wins. Of course, we will compare notes in the end." Zex wondered how he had been tricked, bamboozled, hoodwinked into learning maths, and then he realized he was using it to win a competition to blow up a tractor with a gun. Mrs. Tobrick hated it, but best field trip ever, because we got to blow up a tractor. End of story. The Things They Brought by Coyote Havoc. They walked out of the mist and smoke as if they came from legends told to children. A strange silhouette at first, resembling a twisted one moment, then a holy Samaritan, as the winds shifted in their wake. Single file they walked, not saying a word, scanning the ruins that a day ago had been our village. Their strange hands, with 5 fingers each, were used to communicate intention, direction, and individuals. 3 of them broke from the column heading south, while another 4 headed north. Not a single word spoken or telepathic image relayed. They continued through the wreck and ruin of our lives, silent as the villages we had buried. It wasn't until they had gathered together again that we had heard them. "So, I want the radio here. Trebek, Johnson, Mal, Brackett, get the perimeter started. I want the sandbag crew yesterday. Move it." The one in charge took its head cover off to reveal long black hair that had been braided. They looked around at the life we had lost, the smouldering timbers and shattered rattock that had been our homes. It looked at us, children, who stared at it with fear and awe. It looked at our remaining parents and elders. From its side, it produced a pad and cautiously approached. I wasn't scared. What could it do to me, who had lost everything? I nodded that I understood its words. I nodded and began to tell her what happened. I told her of the night fires and the loud bangs and booms, the sounds of light fire that killed my parents, the crying of my grandmother as she cradled the body of my mother to her chest. The leader began to weep like we do when we are sad. The leader pulled me into it and cried with me. "I'm so sorry, little one," it wept. I felt safe with the leader. They had brought things with them, things we needed, like food and medicine, tools to rebuild, tools to repair, and tools to dig. They brought a device we didn't know, but made it possible to understand us and we them. With the food they cooked for us, Gaganol and Brock, they said they couldn't eat it with us, but they would eat their own food among us. Ours was toxic to them. With the tools they dug holes that they would spend time in. We were told to stay away from them. They filled bags with the red soil and built structures for themselves, then helped us rebuild our gardens and homes. Their medicine was given to the injured among us. Those expected to die recovered, and those who were expected to remain injured healed quickly. They called themselves humans. They had names like John and Daniel. The leader's name was Valerie. The others had names like Mouse and Badger. One who painted his face was called Doc. They were from very far away and had heard of what was happening here, so they came. They meant no harm to us. They brought things that we had never seen. Cards with black and red symbols on white with blue back. They brought tablets that dissolved in water to make it drinkable, and pills that kept the sickness away and kept them awake after dark. They brought coarse black powder that smelled funny and put it in containers with hot water, and red powder that made water taste sweet. We loved the red powder. They brought candy and gum. The red gum tasted like the red powder. The white gum smelled like japeric, a toxic plant that grew nearby. They would not share that with us. They brought fruit and blocks they called freeze-dried, packets of brown ooze they called peanut butter, and a tan thing they called bread. They would mix water with the blocks of fruit, spread the ooze on the bread, and add the now soupy fruit to the top and eat it. They were strange. We liked them a lot. They brought things called weapons that we were forbidden to touch. "We don't want you to hurt yourselves," the one called Doc would say. The weapons were long and short. Valerie wore a short one across her chest and a longer one at her side. The longer ones were kept on their sides, and the big long ones were carried in their packs. There were round ones they wore on their waist, and curved ones that were stuck in the ground in front of their holes. They would stand in those holes for hours, with long ones pointing away from the village. They brought a disease called the flu, and passed out yellow pills to protect us from it. They endured it instead. Their voices would sound funny, and they didn't act like before when they had it. But it only lasted a few days. They brought a spray to chase the biting sag away, and another to kill the vorch. One day, a giant shiny bird appeared, and the humans emerged and brought a bag. The bag held brown boxes of white rectangles they called letters. The boxes had dried meat called jerky, which was tough, and balls were playing. You put the ball on the ground and you kick it to each other, Doc said. He kicked the black and white ball around and kicked it to our feet. You try. They called the game football or soccer, depending on who you asked. Mouse would kick the ball in the air and run around the person he was playing with, then bounce it off his head towards the net that they had built. Mouse was really good. He would play harder with the others, though. When we learned how he played, he asked us to show him. He laughed at us when we couldn't, but was proud of us when we got it right. One night, there were loud noises beyond their holes, and their weapons flashed with light fire and booms. The children were taken to one of their sack buildings and told to be quiet. We could see streaks of fire from the big long weapons they carried on their packs, and the short loud lights from the ends of the long weapons. We could also see the bad people in the distance. They were protecting us from the bad ones all night. Mouse and Trebek were hurt, and the shiny bird came for them in the morning. We never saw them again. Trebek left his jerky, and Mouse left his ball. The others gave the ball to us, saying, Mouse would want you to have it. Then they shared the jerky while crying. I asked about Mouse and Trebek, but they would just smile sadly and say, You're too young. One day, when the gardens were in bloom, they started to fill in their holes and take apart their sack buildings. They packed up the things they didn't need anymore and sent them on to the shiny bird that took Mouse and Trebek. Mouse and Trebek probably needed it more anyway. They packed their letters in their packs and spent a few hours with us. The war is no longer here, Valerie said. We have to go, but we'll always remember you. Valerie kissed me and said, Your grandma and uncle will look after you, little one. Be good to them, for me. Then they walked silently out of our village and back into the mist. They never came back. I miss them a lot. They hadn't left much. They took the fighting with them, and we never saw it again. Mouse left his ball, and they left some of the sacks that held up the goals too, so that we can play soccer. They left something else too. They brought hope when they came, and left it with us when they disappeared into the mist. Valerie said hope keeps people alive. I hope they are still alive. I hope they made it home to their villages, houses, and families. I hope they can smile and don't cry anymore. I hope they come back so that I can see them again. I hope. End of story. I would like to thank the T5 peeps, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, Leslie 517, Red Panda 121, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, Lord Azrakul, Severin Cerberus, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.